Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to this HCTalk podcast. As always, I'm your host, Lance Gormley, and our special guest on the program is Sergeant Boese with the Harvey County Sheriff's Department. How you doing today, Sergeant Boese?
I'm doing good.
Good. Thank you for coming out today. For those that don't know, this is Veterans Day, so We're actually doing this on a holiday. I guess part of law enforcement is that whatever day you work, it doesn't really matter if it falls on a holiday or not. Huh?
That's right.
It's a perk of the job,
That's
as they say. Right? I love it. So we talked a little bit before the program, and I just asked if you, by chance, had watched some of the other interviews that we had done with local law enforcement. I've done a lot with the Harvey County Sheriff's Department. I'm very supportive of our Sheriff's Department. I was asked the other day, just to preface this, the person that talked to me said they don't see a lot of podcasts with officers on a podcast, and said, why do you, what's the motive behind that, right? And I had made the comment that, well, in a world in which it's very easy to brush everybody, paint everybody with the same brush, that here locally we have some really great officers. And not only that, but we have some real great officers across the nation.
Yes.
And the only time you hear, or it seems to hear much about it, is when something's not going the way that it's supposed to go, right?
Yes.
And so in our own world, in Harvey County, what I really wanted to do, and what I'm just endeavoring to do, is to help people understand the man or the woman behind the badge, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And so in that regard, just wanted to give everybody that to knowledge, because I know if somebody asked me that question openly, that there was probably people that were wondering that the same way. So when I asked Sergeant Boese to come out here on the program, he was, you said yes.
Yeah.
You didn't even say no. You didn't say what's that about or anything. It's that bravery, right?
Yeah.
Type of thing. But anywho, so without further ado, so I'm not just going to continue the monologue here, and we can get into the podcast with Sergeant Boese. One thing I like to do when we have people on the program is just start out with, if you want, where were you born? Where did you grow up? What kind of things did you do in high school? Just kind of give me, or the audience, who was Sergeant Boese as a youngster?
So I grew up north of Gossel, a couple miles, right off K-15. Went to Alexanderville Mennonite Church, and that's where I grew up, and had on a farm. And my dad and Grandpa shared a farm together. We had 50 head of cattle maybe, and some cropland, and so that's what I grew up doing, bucking bales and working cattle and helping Dad on the farm. And then in high school, I got into FFA. I wasn't into the band and choir, any of that. I was more of a shop kid and did FFA stuff, and I worked my way through the ranks, through like treasurers and secretary for the FFA, student council, FFA president, and enjoyed leadership right off. And even then, as a kid, I knew I wanted to be a firefighter or a cop, and that's some public service. I like helping people.
Yeah, so you didn't want to be a farmer the rest of your life?
No, I did not.
Although I'm sure you probably still get racked into that, don't you?
Occasionally. I don't help as much as I should, but
as much as they want you to help,
Yes.
right? Because of course it'd be like, you're going to take this over, right? Type of thing.
That was my dad's plan, and I finally had a conversation with him. I was like, I'm not doing this. I want to do other things than farming.
Yeah, well, you were involved in FFA. So what were some of the things? Just giving a shout out to FFA, because that's something a lot of youth still do to this day. I mean, I know that even in Newton, with that being more of a urban environment, Harvey County would be considered rural, but even in Newton, there's a lot of students and youth that really take the FFA track. I mean, what was something that you really enjoyed about that?
I think it was learning. So I did some competitions. We didn't do a whole lot because it's a small school, and so I would try to jump in and just find a competition that we didn't normally do, and I'm like, I don't know anything about that. Let's learn it and do my best. And I was never one of the top ones or won a lot, but it was interesting to learn the Kansas natural plants, and I could look at a piece of grass. I'm like, oh, that's this type of grass. That's that kind of leaf. And so it was just, all right. And I did a dairy judging one time, and I didn't know much about it, and I was like, well, let's learn. Let's see what this is about. And So I was tasting different types of milk and cheeses, trying to identify what was wrong with the milk. Or
this cow got into an onion patch, type of thing, right? That's awesome. And I wonder, I don't know the background on that, but I wonder if they deliberately introduce something and then for you to experiment with that and like they already know what the problem is, but it's your job to try to figure it out. Is that kind of how that works?
Yep, by smelling and tasting it.
Yeah.
And same with cheeses, you had to identify what kind of cheese it was or what was wrong with it. And I don't remember all the details about it. It's been 20 some years.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. I would have pegged you a little bit younger. All right. You're holding your age well, Sergeant Boese. Yes, you are.
Thank you.
I thought you just got out of high school like 5-10 years ago. No, I love it. Okay, so as far as you had mentioned that growing up that you knew that you wanted to be in public service, right?
Yes.
You either wanted to be a firefighter or you wanted to be a law enforcement officer. So what do you think, what experience in your life do you think led you to have that worldview? Did you have family that had been involved in that or anything? Like you live in a rural community, so there's probably a rural fire department, right? So did you know people that were involved in that, or just kind of how did you come to at what point in time do you remember coming to the conclusion in your own mind that this is what I want to do with my life?
So I remember I don't remember what grade it was, kindergarten, first grade, but they had their fire safety week and our local volunteer firefighters came in and did their stuff, showing off what they had and what they do. And I remember thinking that was so cool. And then as a child, my siblings, we were playing outside and there was a wasp nest in their playground set. And so they called, they were scared to go close. And I was like, I've got to be brave and I got to help them out. I went as a little kid and knocked this wasp nest down. And then as soon as I did that, I was like, I love that feeling of helping people and the adrenaline rush of putting myself in a little bit of danger. And I'm like, wow, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I was like, even as a small child, I was like, that's what I'm going to do is help people. And I enjoyed a little of adrenaline.
Yeah. Well, and it's that's interesting, I'll say, because I think oftentimes, a lot of youth, they're like, what do you want to be? Well, I want to be a police officer. I want to be a firefighter, right? But then as life goes on, maybe their viewpoint changes. And I wonder if it's the same type of thing where, I want to be a law enforcement officer. And then they're like, ooh, maybe I don't want to do that. I mean, it's not like necessarily running into a burning building is for everybody, type of thing. But okay, so then, you graduate from high school. At that point in time, were you still just absolutely certain this is what I want? This is what I want to do.
So as soon as I graduated high school, I went and talked to our local fire department in Gossel, and I talked to the fire chief. I said, "What do I do? Got to sign up?" And I said, "I'm an adult, or I'm at a high school now. I got to do something for the community, give back for everything that's getting me through school." And so he said, "Oh, you got to be 18." And I said, "Well, I turn 18 in a couple weeks." He's like, "Come back and talk to me after you're 18." So as soon as I turned 18, day after, I was at the fire station. I was like, all right, sign me up. Let's go.
Yeah.
And so then I started the firefighter training. I went through KU Fire Science Program right away and got my Firefighter 1 and 2 certification. And so I was nationally certified pretty young. And I did that. And so I went to Alaska to do volunteer service for my church, Mennonite Missions Network. And so I lived in Anchorage, and even then I was like, I still have that bug for fighting fires. And so then I did ride-alongs with the Anchorage Fire Department several times a month throughout my year of volunteer service. I would go on Saturdays and ride along and go to calls, and that was my first fatal crash, first fatal fire. And so it's a city of Anchorage is, according to them back then, was the largest municipal city in the country because they're so spread out. But their population is like the size of Wichita. Okay. And so they're really busy. And I rode with the battalion chief downtown, and he would go to all the major calls, and he put me through the ringer. He would be like, all right, I need you to do this, I need you to do that. And he'd train me up, and it was in his role as a battalion chief, he was like, this is what I do, so I need you to learn how to do this, and you're going to help me. You're my assistant now every time you ride. And so he put me on charge of incident command post, and he would stand over and watch and guide me to do the right thing. and I just loved it.
Well, you must have impressed somebody, right? Because you're still young at that point in time.
Yeah.
To have somebody who, I mean, if they're a battalion chief, that's a lifetime of service. You know, that person didn't just all of a sudden become that, you know, type of a thing. So it's that they would take you under you. But I gotta say, what was it like going from the Midwest and rural Kansas, you know, farm kid? I mean, you know, and then to Alaska.
Yeah.
What was that like? Take me to that, right? When did you get on? You probably didn't drive, right?
No.
You probably got on a plane.
No,
we flew there.
So ironically, I bought my plane tickets 3 days before September 11th, 2001, the terrorist attacks. And so we got those. I got my tickets, and I was all excited. I'm going to Alaska, and then the terrorist attack happened, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to fly? I've never flown before.
This is not going to be, I don't want this to be my first and only flight. Yeah.
But it went smooth. It was a 12-hour jumping all the way to Anchorage. And so then I get there, and so it was wintertime when I got there, so it's dark except for 3 hours a day.
Wow.
And during the 3 hours of sunlight, I was the first person to get in this group into the house, and so I didn't know where I was at, didn't know what I was doing, so I stayed in the house and just kind of getting used to the house and learning the rules for this program. And then when later in the week went and picked up some of the other kids that were coming in, and all of a sudden we're in the daylight, and I'm like, we're on the edge of a mountain range. I'm like, holy smokes. I was like, and it was just beautiful.
Yeah.
And but coming from Gossel, Kansas to a large city was quite a shock too. It's just the amount of people and the highway traffic, and it was interesting.
Yeah, you think Alaska's, you know, the great expanse, right? And then you're right smack dab in the largest, I think it is, that's the largest city in Alaska, is it not?
Yeah.
By far, actually, I think. Yeah. So that's kind of the hub there. But so what kind of stuff did you do? Because you're, what kind of stuff did you do while you were on your missions?
So I had an assignment we had a list of jobs we could do. And so I picked the Food Bank of Alaska. And so the Anchorage office, or the Food Bank of Alaska, is the main hub for the entire state. And so they were the giant warehouse where they take all the food and then distribute out of the churches throughout the state to all the food banks, the smaller ones. And so we would have people coming in from hours away driving, and with vans and trailers, and picking up boxes of food, and then they would take it back to their communities.
Wow.
And so because I was a volunteer learning anything I could, they had later in the time they had me working in the office to understand office work, and they had me work with the office people, the secretaries, the administration. They're like, this is what we do as administrators. And so then I would sit down and help them do their paperwork, and I would answer the phone calls, do secretarial work and maintenance. And they were like, this is our main guy, you go with him for today. And eventually they had me in charge of the inmate workers that would come in, because they had to do community service to get out off of probation or parole. And so every week, like once a week, they would have their inmate workers come in and do their volunteer. And so they're like, all right, you're in charge of them. You make sure they do their job. And so I was in charge of them. And if they did something wrong or weren't doing their job, I'd have to turn them in, and they'd send them back. And
so that's almost like your first taste of law enforcement, right? Yes. I love it. So you did that for a year, and and that's part of, I'm assuming, your faith that's what everybody your age in your organization does. They go out and at a young age, they go and they serve somewhere in the world.
Yeah, they're anywhere in the U.S. And so this specific program had set locations throughout the U.S., and I picked Anchorage because it was the furthest away from home.
It's like totally night and day difference to like Gossel, kids. I just got to say that. It's like we have no mountains here.
Yeah.
We have a lot of sunlight except for during the winter, but still nothing comparable to like Alaska places. And then, so did you get to be there during a year? So you were there during the summer as well, when like it's. Yeah. How did you manage that one?
It was.
It's like 3 hours of darkness.
I got there,
basically.
So I got there. It wasn't a full year. I got there in January, and so it just was in the progression, and so you just kind of adapted to it. And then summertime, we had maybe 3 hours of dark, but it wasn't totally pitch black dark. Okay. And so during the summertime, I could go fishing all night and with the bobber, and I could still see my bobber on the water. And so I've hooked up with a couple Air Force guys because Anchorage is right next to Elmendorf Air Force Base. And so I tried it, and they're like, here, obviously you don't know what you're doing here. This is what you need to go get. We'll let you have some of this stuff, and we'll teach you how to salmon fish. And so in Anchorage and Ship Creek, I was salmon fishing with these Air Force guys. And,
that's a life experience.
Oh yeah, it was great.
Yeah. Oh, so something I'm already, I'm all about pattern recognition, right? And so far, just in our discussion, what I've come to believe about you is that you are somebody who enjoys learning. You're somebody that wants to try new things, so that way you can experience different scenarios and situations, and therefore that's learning too.
Yes.
Right. So to say that you're not teachable would be incorrect, right?
Yeah.
So you're somebody that likes to learn, and somebody that will. I'm trying to imagine because I've never been in that experience before, and I would just, it'd just be very eye-opening for me, type of a thing for that. So, okay, so after the year you come back, right? And then at that point in time, what were you looking at?
So I didn't know what I wanted to do, because I kind of was like, well, in between of firefighting and law enforcement, because in high school, I was a complete law enforcement 100%. That's what I'm going to do. I did ride-alongs with Heston Police Department. I rode with Doug Schrader. Kurt Ford was the chief of Heston, so he allowed me to ride with Doug until Kurt left, and then Doug became the chief. And so then I started riding with sheriff's deputies here, Newton police officers, troopers, and just kind of getting all the experience. And then as soon as high school was over, I was like, firefighting. Yeah. That's what I'm going to do. Yeah. And then after I got back from Alaska, I'm like, man, I don't know. I was like, which would be better? And then I kind of played with the idea of becoming a nurse. And so I became a CNA at Newton Medical Center and did that for a couple of years. And then I was like, yeah, it's like a great job. I appreciate all the CNAs and the RNs and LPNs. They're great people. But then I was like, that's just not quite what I want to do. And so I was kind of toying with different ideas, and so somebody told me about a dispatch job in Marion County, and so I applied for that and got that job. And so I was a dispatcher, and then as soon as I was around all the law enforcement, it was just like, that's what I'm going to do, law enforcement. And so I was there for a short time, and then I came to Harvey County Sheriff's Office then in 2006.
So you just hired straight on?
Yeah.
Or did you go through the detention center?
I went through the detention center.
Okay.
And so I worked at the jail for 2 years, and then Dave Huntley retired or announced his retirement, so they moved me from the jail to patrol. Okay,
so question on this. I'm assuming that besides the experience that you had in Alaska, where you were dealing with individuals that had to meet certain requirements and service stuff, that was kind of your first taste. But when you decided to get hired on with the sheriff's department, and they did have you go into the detention center, what was that like? I mean, a lot of people who haven't been there, right? I mean, there's people that have been there, right? And then there's people that work there, right? Yes. So I'm going to say the percentages of people that have worked there on that side of the fence versus the percentage of people that walk into a jail that are not there to be employed. But what was that like?
It was a unique experience and so at Marion County, back when I was there as a dispatcher, the dispatchers attached to the jail. And so on night shift, there was no jail staff. And so dispatchers had to do rounds at the jail and do a head count, make sure the inmates didn't escape through the night. Yeah. And so I had a little experience just seeing the inmates around. And so then when I came to jail, it wasn't like a complete culture shock for me. But it was significantly larger than Marion County. I think Marion County, when I was there, was maybe 8 or 10 inmates. Okay. To ours, when I worked at the jail, there was like 120 inmates, and so that was a huge difference, and a completely different building style, and so it was interesting. It was
interesting.
Yes.
Okay, so with that style of law enforcement, corrections.
Yes.
Just going back to that, what did you feel like was one of the biggest challenges to that? For you personally, like I always ask challenges and then successes, and in a place like that, I would assume that you deal with more challenging things,
yes,
versus like the success, which to me, if I would say a success would be that you know, it's smaller community, so you might see somebody come in and out and having struggles and then get it, right?
Yeah.
So then the success would be, well, Tom, you know, he was down on his luck. He came in and out and in and out and in and out, making poor choices. And then all of a sudden I see Tom 20 years later and he's done everything that, you know, that would be a rewarding, right?
Yes.
I would think.
Yeah,
so
it is, absolutely.
With challenge, what was for you, what was something that you can recall as being one of the bigger challenges that you faced while doing that?
Trying to figure out a way to communicate to people, a way to better themselves. But I was super nice kid. And so, you know, some of the inmates always try to get a little edge or extra stuff. And so I was very naive. And so there's a balance of being professional and business mindset of helping these people that need help, but at the same time not letting them take advantage of, it's like, hey, can I have extra food or can I have this? And just trying to get an edge. There's a balance of allowing certain things to go, but at the same time keeping the rules enforced. And so that was a struggle for mine. Is I'm a black and white person. I'm like, well, this is the rule. That's what you're supposed to do. Yeah. And so trying to find that balance of like, okay, yeah, it's a minor rule. Hey, knock that off.
Yeah.
It's kind of like giving a verbal warning on a traffic stop versus writing a ticket, and trying to find that balance of how to enforce certain rules and where you can be lenient and also not get to take advantage by the inmates.
Yeah. Well, and that would be, I can see how that would be a challenge, you know, learning who you are and the fact that you are somebody who has a service-oriented mindset, right? Mm-hmm. So oftentimes, I will say with our desire as human beings to serve, that then puts you in a position where it could be compromising. It could turn into that, you know. It's like the, you know, I just want to be somebody who helps people. So when I see somebody, you know, walking down the side of the road, you know, I want to help that person and give them a ride. That could go south.
Yes, it can.
You know, and if you're not in a situation where you say, man, you know, I've got to set a boundary to say that you're not saying that something potentially could go wrong here, but if something does go wrong, then I'm in a world of storm. You know, we'll just call it that.
Trying to figure out how to help people the right way.
Yes,
that's beneficial for everybody.
Yeah, and then that would be a challenge in a correctional environment.
Yes,
right, because ultimately these people have. It's been said before when I've had other law enforcement officers out here that, you know, especially in corrections, when we're talking about people that make choices that find themselves in that position, is probably what some would call their worst day, right? Or at least not a high point in your life, right? Obviously. So then if the desire is to help an individual in that way, you're limited in that capacity to where what you can and can't do to help them just by the nature of safety and security.
Yeah.
Right?
Right? It's an interesting balance trying to learn that. And I think a lot of our young staff, even on patrol, to learn that kind of concept it's a challenge, and seeing them work through that. And so for me as a supervisor, it's fun to see our younger guys learn that. And I'm like, oh, I remember that.
Yeah. Like you youngster, you. But that's almost like that's a personal thing. That's really personal, because how you deal with something or how you walked through that and then came to in your own mind justify setting boundaries, or like you said, in an instance where you could give a ticket for something but you choose not to, or how you balance that, right? I mean, that's a very personal thing, right?
Yes, it can be.
Yeah. And so as a supervisor, not to jump forward here, but just we'll get into that in a second. Okay. So you didn't want to stay in the jail forever.
No.
That was just kind of you got to do this. So when you started and you were doing that, was it a situation where you were just like counting the days? You're like, man, one of these days the slot's going to come open.
Kinda. I had applied to a couple different agencies, trying to get out onto the street. But it was, and I had a feeling something was going to come up eventually, but excuse me. But it was, and I thought, well, if this is where I'm at, this is what is meant to be, and that's where I'll stay. But if I'm meant to be on the street, then hopefully it'll work out. And
yeah.
So it was just kind of those. It was kind of was like, well, whatever God wants me to do, that's where I'll be, and I'll be happy with it and make the best of it. And,
So then position came open.
Yes.
Right. And then you applied, and obviously, I'm gonna say that, and I don't know what year we're talking here, but I've had the conversation before where policing of yesterday is not policing of today. Where before there was a lot of applicants, like there was, and I don't know if what you're talking about was a point in time in which there was no shortage of people who wanted to sign up to be law enforcement officer. Was that the case? I mean, like when you applied, they had a lot of applicants?
So for me, I got lucky. I just got appointed.
Okay. Very good.
So I had expressed my interest, and the sheriff at the time was AJ Withnow. And so he had lost the election, so he was getting ready to leave, and T. Walton was getting ready to come in. And so that's I got pulled in the office, and they're like, "Hey, is this what you want to do?" And I was like, "Yeah, are you being?" So they teased me and made it sound like I was getting in trouble initially when they sat me down. And so
we want to talk to you about the jail.
Yeah, they're like, "I've got an employee file here, and it's I'm not happy." And I'm like, "Oh no!" And so he's like, "I'm not happy," and I'm like, "What did I do?" He was like, "It's not what you did." He's like, "I didn't win the election, so." He's like, "But you got the job," and I'm like, "What?"
That's
I'm
awesome.
looking at all the bosses, and they're just laughing behind me, and I'm like, "Yes, I want the job."
Yeah. Is there? I think oftentimes, I know I have learned that there really is, and I don't want to say brotherhood because obviously there's you don't have to be a man just to be able to be in law enforcement, but there's a lot of camaraderie and, for lack of a better word, brotherhood, or this. I'm trying to find a different word to say, but I think people understand what I'm trying to say. Is law enforcement, you're a community unto itself.
Yes. Yeah, and so it's kind of like the military. What I've heard to comparison, I don't have military background, so I can't compare it, but I've heard of other people saying that, is when you put yourselves, just like firefighters, EMS, nurses, when you put yourself into a public service environment that can be dangerous or high risk, high stress, you kind of bond together and understand how to cope with those types of things. And so we all kind of understand, like, hey, that's a bad situation, or that was high stress. That's not what normal people see. And so that way we can communicate in a different way, have a different sense of humor. And so that way we can help get each other through those bad days. So I think that's how we bond together. And so we seem a little rough or cold at times, but that's how we get through it, because there's been situations where I've learned to put up a kind of a mental or emotional block or a wall. So that way I'm like, that's going to be bad if I allow that to get personal. And so to continue doing this job, I have to shield myself from that so I can continue on the next day and the next day. And so I think we've all learned a level of that. And so that's how we communicate and we understand it.
Mutual shared experiences.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Bonding because of mutual shared experiences.
Yes.
Yeah. Because although that situation that you experienced may not be identical to the one that somebody else experienced, there's enough, parallels that the human experience would be the same.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. And because even when I worked at the hospital as a CNA, there was a lot of patients I got close to, and it was like cancer type stuff, and something happened where I was going to like multiple funerals within a very short time, and I could tell all of a sudden I was just like, I can't do this. I was like, I have to not get so personal anymore because it's draining emotionally on me. And so that's when I was like, I gotta make that separation.
Because you care.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I want to continue doing this.
Yeah. Because okay. So, what was the two-part question? Can you point to an experience early on when you were, I don't know the ranking system, but you were a patrol officer,
yes.
Correct? Okay.
Yeah.
So then there's ranks that you go through, whatever. But as a patrol officer, two-part question: what was something you can point back to say, man, I really know this is exactly where I'm supposed to be doing what I'm doing? And then the other one would be, what was something that happened where you were questioned, man, is this really what I want to be?
There's been a number of calls, situations where, so early on when I was right in the jail, I was working as a reserve officer for the city of Gospel, my home community still. And we got into a situation in Newton that was pretty bad. We had a law enforcement involved shooting. And as soon as I walked away, I was like, that was a really bad thing. But at the same time, I was glad I was there to experience that, because that's one of the worst things law enforcement can ever get into. And to know, I was like, I didn't freak out. I didn't panic and run away. So, and I was like, that was, I saw the worst, and I can work through that. And that was like, this is where I'm supposed to be as this type of work.
Yeah.
What was the other part?
It's the success. Where was, so that, I'm assuming that was a challenge, right?
Yeah.
Because like you said, yeah, to lose one of your own, and then have to process that through, personalizing it, knowing that, well, by the grace of God, there go me, because.
Well, this wasn't an officer that got shot. It was just
Okay.
an officer. A couple officers shot somebody here in the city of Newton.
Okay.
So-
So I went the wrong way with that. My apologies.
That hadn't happened.
Yeah.
But it was, so seeing that, seeing how officers have to shoot somebody because the person came out with a gun and pointed at them, and he meant harm. And so they had to defend themselves, and watching that. And that was, I lost a lot of sleep for a couple weeks and processed that. And
Well, it's interesting that you point that out. I just got to say that it being something that you sign up to serve and help, and then be put in a situation where there's no other option, right, but to stop this person from hurting themselves or someone else, right?
Yes.
Obviously. That tells a lot about you, Tim. I just got to say,
Thank you.
that's a challenge, because not being in that situation and looking at it from another perspective, knowing that weighs heavy on your heart, and that's a challenge, because ultimately no officer wants to be put in a situation where they have to use.
no.
It's not like everybody's just waiting. Oh man, I'm in this job to.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. That was, and it seemed like it was at that time, it was about every other year something major would happen. That was a new experience. I had to do CPR on a friend or a neighbor. And so that, again, it was just, it's an emotional roller coaster, but you get through it and work the next day. And
yeah. So success, okay,
Yes.
or it's not a success necessarily, but just, can you point to one situation where, even though it might have been something that I would look at, because I'm not in, behind the badge, that I might say, wow, that's, that would be traumatizing to me. But at the same time, what's something you can point to where you're like, you know what, I've walked away from this situation knowing that, like, I either helped save someone's life, or I helped somebody in some way that was monumental to you, that you were able to think for a split second, this is why I do what I do. This is why I am who I am.
so the first time I saved somebody with CPR, it was an interesting experience. I was actually working for Peabody Police Department as a part-time officer on my days off from here, and got a call and somebody having heart issues. I get there first, and it was somebody I knew his wife, and he was a very large person. He was just stature. He was a tall person,
Built like a linebacker.
Oh yeah, he was a big man.
Yeah,
cool dude. And his pacemaker wasn't working, and his heart had stopped. So I checked his vitals. And so I started CPR, and obviously his heart wasn't working, so I started CPR. And for whatever reason, his heart started, and he woke up and started talking to me, and I'm like, oh my goodness. And so but then his heart stopped again, and so I started again, and then EMS and then he came back, woke up again, started talking to us. EMS got there, and then he stopped again. And so then they shocked him, and then it brought him back, and that stopped his heart from stopping. And so then he lived for another year or two before he ended up passing away. So he extended his life and helped keep things going, and that was a great experience. It was a lot of fun.
Who knows the difference that he made during that 2 years, right? Yeah, because life is precious. I mean, when you think about when our time here is done, we have no ability to affect anything going on here in this world, right?
Yeah.
So if you have somebody that you're able to interject and then prolong their life, who knows what they were able to affect change on.
Yeah,
right.
And since he was an older guy, he got to spend a couple more years with his grandkids, seeing them grow a little bit older or go to school functions, and they got to have those memories of Grandpa, because his grandkids were standing there watching me and watching this whole thing, and his kids and his wife, and so it was a very emotional thing for them, and so that way they got to see him for a couple more years and experience life a little bit longer.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I got a question. I'm getting a mental picture of you being here in this situation, and you're administering CPR, and the family is here, and they're all watching all of this happen, and knowing that, you played a significant role in part in making sure that the man was able to see another day, God willing, right? And if you were not there in that moment, in that time, to do exactly what you were doing, then the situation wouldn't have worked out that way.
Yeah, I would hope EMS got there and did their thing soon enough, but I would like to think that what I did helped his quality of life.
Yeah.
So his body needs oxygen.
Yeah.
So
you ain't gonna get it if your heart ain't right.
Yeah.
Okay, so you. Man, you have a story. I'll just say, moving forward, right? You're a sergeant now.
Yes.
Obviously. So, I guess I could ask for like a chronological timeline of how long you worked for the sheriff's department as a patrol officer before you became a sergeant, but you could cover that real quick and then get into the differences in duty and obligation when it comes from being a patrol officer to a sergeant.
So they created a corporal position early on, or after a few years, and then so I got that position. I was one of the first corporals in the sheriff's office, and so then so I was in charge of a shift, and then my job was, and I also trained all of our new deputies. I was a field training officer, FTO, and so all of our new hires, I trained a lot of them for a number of years, but then it got to where it was too much, and I was like, and then they got rid of the corporal positions and made sergeants. So we have 4 sergeants for the patrol side of the Harvey County Sheriff's Office. Okay. So for that, being able to see people grow and help them out, and it to me, it's fun. I enjoy, and I don't like to micromanage people, but I like to go to the scenes sometimes and just watch people on my shift work. And especially the younger ones, and then seeing them it's clicking and everything's working, and they're like, yeah, this is what I want to do, we're going to do this, and I just stand back and watch, and I'm like, success, that's awesome. Yeah. And it's fun to me to see that, and
yeah, because there's all kinds of factors involved in that.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if you have a new officer, I would think that, and of course I'm projecting here, but I would think that an experienced officer, having gone through just scenario after scenario after scenario, either at a traffic stop or what to do in whatever situation that may arise, and the variables are countless, right? I mean, it's no traffic stop is the same, the whole thing. I mean, there's so many variables that you have to be thinking about when you're in the line of duty, right? Yes. So then at that point, you're looking at it from the lens of, is this officer putting themselves at safety risk? Are they going through the standard operating procedure or process that's proven to mitigate whatever potential issues may arise, or the big ones? So you're able to even just coach and nurture those individuals, and then when you're out there watching them, you're seeing that they're listening, they're learning, and then you're watching the process. And so then, because you're tasked with responsibility to ensure that they are maturing as a rookie, if you'd call it that, up into an officer that really, I got to say, officer safety in today's world environment. It's got to be paramount.
Oh, yeah. It's a lot of work, and it can be stressful at times. And even with somebody that's less experienced, when they've got their questions, it's like, trying to figure out a way to balance that certain person, because each person's a little different. And so trying to figure out a way to teach them the best way that they can be taught. And some people, you can be, I need you to do this, and they'll get it. Yeah. And then other people are like, hey, it's like, what do you think should work? Or what would you do? And so you have to find that balance of understanding how they learn and how they process things. And it's...
yeah. Once again, it goes back to the variables.
Yes.
Everybody's different. Every situation is different. And something else that I'm humbled by when I'm listening to you talk is that your goal ultimately is not only to serve the public, but also to serve your fellow officers in a way that helps them become the best that they can be. So therefore they can serve the public in a way that's beneficial to not only the public, but also while keeping themselves safe.
Yes.
Yeah. There's a lot there, man.
I mean,
there's a lot there.
It's a lot of work.
Like we're trying to condense it down into, an hour-long conversation, but it would just the wheels are turning a million miles a minute in here about just all of the potential situations that you can't just tell somebody, they have to experience it.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, and it's interesting to see how that all works and it all comes together, and just be there for everybody Yeah.
Okay, so throughout your entire time being a law enforcement officer, going from reserve to part-time here to type of thing, then the jail, and then patrol, and then now sergeant, do you feel like at this point in time where you are at is the most rewarding in your personal life serving as a law enforcement officer?
I think so. As I'm getting older, when you're young, you have a lot more energy and you're like, just go. And now I'm finding myself more of wanting to help see our guys succeed, because I know I'm going to retire at some point. And so making sure that they're built up to what the best potential they can be to serve the community and serve the sheriff's office the best way they can, and make sure that's rewarding to me, is knowing that they're getting to where they need to be so I can retire and step away, and and they just keep making things better and better.
Yeah. Passing that knowledge on to the next generation of officers.
That's what my goal is, getting to the point where I'm at now is in my career is.
Yeah. Well, you're talking about retirement. You're not old enough to retire. There's no way you are, right? So that leads me to this. Have you ever at this point in time sat back and said, man, I don't know how much longer I want to do this? Has that crossed your mind?
Yeah, there's some days I'm like, I could do this till I'm 70. But then there's the other days I'm like, whoa, no.
I let my job a damn,
Yeah. I like what I do, but I don't know how long I'm going to do this. But I'm trying to progress myself. So I'm going through college right now.
Okay.
And so I'm going to Sterling online. And I'm 2.5 years in, and I got 2.5 years left. And so I'm doing 2 to 3 classes per semester, and I'm working on my bachelor's for criminal justice administration. Okay. And so it's some classes that are focused on their general criminal justice program, but others are business mindset, leadership training, accounting, and that kind of stuff, understanding statistics and.
Yeah. So why? Okay. So I'm a fan of education. For all intents and purposes, even if people, and I've said this before, go into college and complete a degree of some kind, and then don't necessarily use that degree in their career, that you can't ever take away what's been learned. So, why did you decide? You said 2.5 years, so you've been a law enforcement officer. What was it that at what point did you decide I want to go to school, and why?
Yeah, so I've tried for a couple chief jobs in the state, and I keep losing out because people have educations, or that's part of their stipulations. If you're going to apply, you have to have these minimum standards, and one of them is a bachelor's degree. And that's where I have lost out on a couple opportunities. And so that's when I was like, all right, I need to do something different to make myself promotable. Even if it's in the sheriff's office or it's becoming a chief of police somewhere or running for sheriff here, I got to make sure I'm set up for success in the future. And so that's why I started going through college, and because I've never done college before. And so it's a new experience. I've got to do all my gen ed classes too, mixed in with my degree classes.
Yeah. Well, and of course, you're biting that off, even while being a full-time patrol officer.
Yes.
So no matter what happens, right? I mean, you'd think there are times, and I know this, having instructed courses before at a college level, that there are life experiences that happen to people that are going to school, and it can knock them off course. It can make going to school very difficult at times. And in your field, going to school, doing what you're doing, it's like you can't just call and be like, I'm sick today. I had a really, really bad night last night, because of whatever transpired. You just have to keep chucking away at it and doing the grind.
Professors don't care.
Yeah, they don't. Yeah,
I'm sure they do, but
there's a standard that has to be met.
There's a timeline, and so there's some of the professors have been pretty cool. I haven't had to use that yet, where I'm like, hey, I'm busy, and some of them have said right at the start of each semester, like, hey, if you need help, let us know. We'll extend your time, or if you can get your homework done sooner, we'll unlock these classes so you can get done sooner.
Very cool.
But then there's been a couple of them. There are stipulations like due date is due date, and you're no questions.
If ands or buts about it,
you can get it done. It's like, oof.
It's like, well, man, Okay, so and that's nice. Online classes are great for people that are in a career, because it saves the having it. Oftentimes, I know that there's like, here's the requirements, here's the curriculum. This is when this is opened up, and then you have until this day to do it. So if you have good time management skills, then the ability to be able to be successful is great. So choosing to do that now, is it challenging? I mean, I gotta say at your age, but I'm just gonna say at your age, going back to school so far removed from your high school education, has there been some challenges there?
Yes, it has. And for one, having kids too. I've got two younger kids. I've got a middle schooler and a kindergartner.
Okay, yeah.
And so
that's time.
And Boy Scout leaders. Yes. I'm a Boy Scout leader for Heston as well.
Okay.
So managing all of those pieces, trying to make sure there's equal amount of time for each thing, has been a challenge. But then just going to the education, because I'm not a great person at math.
Yeah. So, and you're having to take like algebra 20 years after you
so this summer I took a summer class, and I'm like, what is this? And so I had to like screenshot some symbols, and they're like, oh, that's statistical math, and I'm like, oh
yeah, of course, yeah, I knew that. I'm sorry.
And so then I'm like, okay, well, what?
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about. It is mind-boggling, man. I mean, it's like all these new things, and you're just like, what is that? Oh, you need to memorize that symbol.
Yeah. And so that's what I'm like, I'm going to YouTube. I'm like, well, how do I do this? That way I can get to it. So I'm like, I should have taken some easier classes.
But you can't. There's times where you just, I know what you're talking about. I know exactly. Yeah, it's like you're trying to learn a new language.
Yes.
Yeah. Very, very challenging. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So I got to tip my hat to you for that, because not only are you an adult that's returning to school to better yourself in the field of law enforcement in order to just continue to progress with the knowledge that your heart attitude is to serve, but not only that, then like you had said, to serve the upcoming youth or individuals that find themselves also wanting to have the same heart and serve, in that way, and all the challenges and all the, there's just there's a lot there, Tim. There's a lot there. So you had mentioned the potential to move up. Like your desire is to just kind of continue on in your career path and then take on a more administrative role. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Okay.
At some point.
Yeah, at some point. Well, going back to what you said before, whenever God sees fit.
Yes.
Whatever's in your path.
Yeah, if that's my goal. That's what I hope to happen. But if it's not meant to be, then I'll accept it and work through it. But I'm hoping as I get older that I will come off the street and it'll be more physically enabling. Law enforcement's not for an older person, and I see the writing on the wall.
Yeah.
And so it's
a young man's sport.
Yes.
You know?
And so I would like to still be able to help out and do things, but be in the office and help put the chess pieces where they need to be and guide people where they need to go and make sure that the sheriff's office is successful.
Yeah. Yeah. Overarching. And I've kind of asked this question, and I don't know if you've answered this question. I think you pretty much have. But if I'm somebody who's sitting here listening to your story, and I might be, I would say a younger person, right? Or somebody who's just getting out of college and wanting to go into law enforcement, or somebody that might have had another career before and just feels the calling to law enforcement, whatever the case may be. If you're had the opportunity to speak directly to any individual that was considering law enforcement as a career, have never taken that step, what would you tell them?
Keep an open mind. It's a great career, but it's challenging, and so be willing to have an open mind into some of the challenges. It can be very rewarding, but it's also, you have to have mental toughness. Putting yourself out into negative 20 degrees, standing at an accident. People don't always want to drive safely even past you, and so there's going to be scary moments, but embrace those and learn from those, because you're outside. You get to help people, and it's a lot of fun.
Very rewarding.
Yes.
In your opinion, a very rewarding career.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Challenges, but rewarding.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Always learning something new to learn.
Okay, and then just to give a little shout out to the Harvey County Sheriff's Department there. Why choose Harvey County Sheriff's Department? If you're looking at doing something in law enforcement, there are law enforcement agencies across
everywhere.
Harvey County, across the state, across the nation. Why pick Harvey County? Why tell this person, hey, if you can get past the first thing, if you can keep an open mind, and you can understand that it's very rewarding, at times risky, but rewarding overall, why come to Harvey County and put in an application to be a sheriff?
So I think we have a vast variety of things that we can do. We're not so busy at times that you can't go do what you're interested in. Like some people are more interested in finding DUIs, and so they'll go to the areas where they have the most success. There's sometimes that we are busy enough that you're going to be going call to call, but that's not as often. And so, but we also have the interstate, we have Highway 50, we have K196, K15. So there's a lot of traffic that travels through here with opportunities to either do drug and interdiction type stuff, DUI investigations, crash investigations. That's one thing. It sounds morbid, but I like working car crashes. I hate it when people get hurt, but I love seeing how the car crash works. And so we have so many highways here that there's opportunities for that. I enjoy working this car crashes.
Yeah, that's interesting. And to say this too, that I'm just going to preface this. There are lots of car accidents that don't involve any kind of fatality or major injury.
Yes.
Right? So you're talking about mapping it.
Yes.
Mapping it.
Diagramming it and getting on. So what happened here, and putting all those pieces together, and then to visually see and then draw it out on a picture on the accident report. And for whatever reason, I like doing that.
Putting the puzzle together.
Yes.
It's an investigation.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, and it's a quick little investigation, get to do that. But there's opportunities to do other things too, with like domestic violence type stuff, and making sure we're holding people accountable for that and protecting people. And there's just a lot of things here that can be done. And if somebody wants a slower paced agency, they don't have to go to Wichita or Sedgwick County or Topeka, any of those larger agencies, because I've never worked there, but from my understanding is it's just all you do is go from call to call to call to call, and you don't have opportunities to go do traffic stuff if that's your interest. Yeah. But some of these smaller agencies, there's nothing going on, and so it can get very boring of just driving. And I think we have a good balance of opportunities to do a lot of things that you have an interest in.
And a smaller community where people support their law enforcement officers.
Yes, and that is one thing.
9 times out of 10.
It seems like Harvey County has a very good support system for the community versus law enforcement. That's one thing I've been happy with.
Yeah, really appreciate you guys and all that you do.
I thank you.
You know, yeah, I mean, I do. You know, support you 100%. I appreciate all that you do. Couldn't imagine being in your shoes. I mean, I could try to imagine it, but not having ever lived that life experience, or even, you know, having to try to process through some of the things that you have to, you know, or even then, I mean, I know what it's like to reach out and help somebody and get a feeling of reward, a rewarding feeling based upon I was able to help somebody and make a difference and change. But I'm also not the person that if the time comes where somebody needs help, that I just bound by duty am obligated to go put myself in harm's way to do that.
Yeah.
You are.
Yeah.
You know, all of you are, and I've said this many times before. Of all of our law enforcement across Harvey County, anytime somebody has something negative to say, I always say, well, you know what? I just know that if I was calling 911 because I needed help, that they would be there as quickly as they possibly could to help me in my time of need, even if it meant putting yourself in danger to do it. I just know that. I know that. I've seen it. I know it. I know it to be true.
Yeah, I think we have a good culture here.
Yeah.
It's
all the way around.
Yeah.
All the way around. Okay, Tim. We are coming to the end of the program, so we try to keep it about an hour. We could go talk and talk and talk. I'm sure we could. We're kindred spirits, I'm sure. I see that now. But just with that being said, one thing that we always do on the program when we're wrapping up is give the guests the last word to speak directly to the hearts and the minds of everybody listening. What do you got for us, Sergeant Boese?
Well, I really enjoy doing this job. I've loved it, and I want to continue doing it as long as I can. And it's a rewarding place to be. I like being here in Harvey County versus other agencies around here. I enjoy the people, the community that I've served, and I don't want to stop doing it. And I hope other people see this and want to either apply here or help support us. And I appreciate all of that. And
yeah.
So, yeah.
Getting to know the man behind the badge.
Yep.
Getting to know the man behind
Hopefully.
the badge. Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Well, on that note, I just want to thank everybody for listening to this HCTalk podcast. As always, I was your host, Lance Gormley, and our special guest on the program today was Sergeant Tim Boese with the Harvey County Sheriff's Department.
Yep.
Have a good one, everybody.